Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, a wild ride filling out this coaching staff for the Michigan Wolverines. As it sounds like there's going to be a change of plan at the defensive backs coach position. Stephen Adegoke, it sounded like accepted the job to come to Michigan and coach this defensive backs room yesterday afternoon. News breaking about 15 minutes ago that he's backing out of the job, staying with the Houston Texans. And now Sherrone Moore in this Michigan program looking for another defensive backs coach. And we talked about a few options. Lamar Morgan sounding like the option that is going to be the pivot play for Sherrone Moore. And Dill, I'll say this. I mean, I was very happy about the hire of Stephen Adegoke yesterday afternoon. I think Lamar Morgan is another very quality candidate for this defensive backs coach position. You talked about pros and cons with Stephen Adegoke. I mean, there's pros and cons for Lamar Morgan too, but there are a lot of pros, including being his biggest endorser, coming from Jesse Minter, who worked with him at Vanderbilt in 2021. Want to get into Lamar Morgan, talk a little bit about what he brings to the table for the Michigan Wolverines before we get into it. As always, just want to say thank you to you guys and a massive shout out to the Michigan fans. The boys have been covering this coaching search for the last couple of weeks, and the amount of support, the amount of feedback, the amount of input you guys have given has been absolutely amazing. Cannot thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, you enjoy the updates, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, would love to hear how you guys are feeling in the comment section about this one. And Dill, without further ado, I'm going to open it up to you. I'll give you your take on Stephen Adegoke, but then let's get into Lamar Morgan, what he might bring to this Michigan staff.
Yeah, I mean, these Michigan insiders are killing us with this news. It's like this way, that way. No one knows what's going on. Maybe Harbaugh didn't just take coaches. He took some of the sources because no one knows what's going on, it seems. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it is kind of like the choice, whether you take more of a college guy, which Lamar Morgan is. I mean, he's worked his way up, more of that traditional route of what you do as a college position coach. Been at a bunch of different schools, hit Vanderbilt, went to Louisiana, obviously made a bunch of stops. And Stephen Adegoke, obviously coming from the D'Amico Ryan tree, but really, really light on the experience and only a couple real years of coaching, I'd say, in the NFL. So again, I think you do get your pros and cons with each. I mean, Sherrone Moore he's probably doing the same calculation and isn't going to if Stephen Adegoke doesn't want to be there, he's not going to be there. It's not like the end of the world. It's, okay, Lamar Morgan, if he wants to be there, good. You got a guy who wants to be there. And again, it's hard to differentiate the two at to some extent because, again, they're very different in they're very pros.
It's kind of a choose your flavor. And a lot of people were saying, like, oh, Stephen Adegoke, the next defensive coordinator after Wink Martindale moves on. I think the more realistic idea is Lamar Morgan would probably be the next defensive coordinator as Wink Martindale moves on, because Lamar Morgan is a sitting defensive coordinator right now for Louisiana. And so you look at Lamar Morgan, I think what excites you about Lamar Morgan more than Stephen Adegoke, and again, you guys know I was a fan of the Stephen Adegoke hire, would love to have him in Ann Arbor. There were some question marks. And Dill, I think you highlighted the biggest question mark being the experience really isn't there. This was a rising star in the industry. There's no doubt about that. He's never really recruited. He's never worked as a position coach at the college level. And so there were some question marks there. A guy like Lamar Morgan has cut his teeth in the college game, has recruited at multiple different stops, including Louisiana, at Vanderbilt, and at Houston. So he has experience recruiting all over the country. But I think most importantly, Dill, you look at the Wink Martindale hire, that was an NFL guy, right? Wink Martindale hasn't been in the college football landscape in over a decade. And so what you're getting with Lamar Morgan is a guy that has been at the college landscape for the last 10 years. A lot of experience in college programs, a lot of experience on the recruiting trail. And you look at balancing out Wink Martindale and maybe his lack of experience in the college landscape on the recruiting trail. You go earlier today and go get Brian Jean-Marie, a 20-year vet at the college level. And then you go out and get a guy like Lamar Morgan, who has slowly worked his way up at multiple stops at the college football level. You look at having a well-balanced staff. I mean, Wink Martindale, an NFL guy who is a genius at schematics of the defense, obviously being the mentor to guys like Jesse Minter and Mike McDonald. Now you're surrounding a guy like Wink Martindale with a guy like Brian Jean-Marie at the linebacker spot and a guy like Lamar Morgan at the defensive back spot that have cut their teeth at the college level. And I think that's a massive plus for a guy like Lamar Morgan as opposed to someone like Stephen Adegoke.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if he's good enough for Jesse Minter, he's got to be good enough for us. Yeah. Jesse Minter, I mean, he was the guy. He took this Michigan defense. He put I'll say, I think this was one of the best defenses that have ever graced the college football field. So Jesse Minter, I mean, what he did, he knows if Lamar Morgan can teach the way he wants it taught in that secondary, again, the Jesse Minter connection to Wink Martindale, obviously. So as much as you can keep continuity through that defense, which is actually returning a fair amount of guys, I think the better. And that, again, to me, it's like he's got Jesse Minter's blessing, coached with him a lot. I think he should be able to do really fine.
I think that's the biggest selling point. Like, if there are Michigan fans that are, this feels like a plan B. If Jesse Minter wanted Lamar Morgan, I want Lamar Morgan. Let's just put it that way.
Jesse Minter was plan B to Mike Macdonald. Not to take anything away from Mike Macdonald, but Jesse Minter took the Mike Macdonald kind of scheme or defense, let's say, and ran with it. And I mean, it got far better under Jesse Minter to the which culminated with that 2023 national title.
I guess talk about plan Bs. I mean, Maurice Linguist was Michigan's first option at the defensive backs coach the last hire round. Steve Clinkscale was our plan B. Steve Clinkscale comes in and develops multiple all Big Ten NFL draft pick defensive backs. And so you talk about plan A, plan B. I think Sherrone Moore did exactly what we just had this conversation where you have Lamar Morgan, who apparently crushed it in the interview. You have a guy like Stephen Adegoke. Both of them have pros and cons. I think he went through that process, leaned Stephen Adegoke. That didn't work out. You have a phenomenal option with Lamar Morgan. And Dill, you have to give Sherrone Moore just a massive amount of credit in terms of what he's been able to do the last couple of weeks. I mean, earlier today, Sherrone Moore just went out and poached a linebacker coach in the SEC at the Tennessee Volunteers to come make a lateral move and coach these linebackers at Michigan. And then you go out and get a sitting defensive coordinator at the FBS level to come coach the defensive backs. I mean, you look at how this coaching staff is winding out. Hopefully Greg Scruggs gets in the fold relatively soon. I mean, I think you're pretty excited about what Sherrone Moore's done. And this was not an easy last 24 hours, right? It sounded like the job was accepted by Stephen Adegoke, but it sounds like Sherrone Moore was very prepared to pivot and get the next best guy. And I think that's going to be Lamar Morgan. We'll continue to kind of dive into Lamar Morgan. It sounds like he's going to be the next option that Michigan's going after. There's still a lot of good candidates. Like a guy like Corey Parker, you could sign me up for Corey Parker going to Michigan right now, and I'd be thrilled. I trust Sherrone Moore. It's a very attractive defensive backs coaching job, and you're looking like you're getting a lot of quality candidates that are interested in coming to Ann Arbor. As always, we'll continue to keep you guys as updated as possible with this Michigan coaching staff. Again, wild last 24, 48 hours. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, again, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, would love to hear what you guys are thinking in the comment section. We'll chop it up there, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.